Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. Today we're continuing the What If Kushina Survived storyline. Much faster than last time, I know, yay. But before we get into what happens next in the story, I want to go over what already happened in the last part, specifically with Orochimaru. I couldn't find a good way or place to put this information into that video, so I will explain it here. As a quick reminder, Orochimaru has an Uchiha body and an arm made up of Hashirama cells here, just like the one he made for Danzo in the original. And he has 4 Sharingan implanted into it at the start of the Konoha Crush arc, and he has 2 Mangekyo eyes in his regular eye sockets. He used up 1 eye for Izanagi when he was surrounded by Konoha Shinobi and about to be sealed by Kushina. He then escaped the village undetected and met up with Obito and Pain, who quickly proceeded to betray him. They fought for a bit, but Orochimaru was clearly outmatched and resorted to using his Mangekyo ability to go into his pocket dimension. And if you go back and watch part 7, you'll notice that there is actually a very specific line in that video. After a little bit of preparation, Orochimaru returns to the outside world. A little bit of preparation being the key words there. Orochimaru knew he couldn't beat Pain and Obito, so he gouged out his 2 Mangekyo eyes from his eye sockets and replaced them with 2 eyes from the Sharingan arm. So now Orochimaru had 2 regular Sharingan eyes in his face, 1 blank eye in his arm from using Izanagi, his 2 Mangekyo eyes in his arm, and another regular Sharingan in his arm. This was so that he could use Izanagi 2 times with the regular Sharingan in his eye sockets and trick Obito into thinking he was dead. Orochimaru uses Izanagi 2 times, both of the eyes on his face turn blank, Pain and Obito kill him a 3rd time, and since they don't know about the Sharingan arm, they think Orochimaru truly died this time. However, he still had 1 regular Sharingan in his arm, which he used for Izanagi. But this time he set a time for when he would return, just like Madara was able to do after his battle with Hashirama in the original. Orochimaru set a time for Izanagi to activate 3 days after his time of death. And this is when the scene at the end of part 8 happens. Kabuto and Kimimaro meet up and Orochimaru soon returns to life. After all is said and done, Orochimaru has 2 Mangekyo eyes in his arm, 2 blank eyes in his arm, and 2 blank eyes on his face. He basically used up all 4 of the regular Sharingan he had in his arm originally for Izanagi. Then he takes the 2 Mangekyo Sharingan from his arm and implants them back into his face. And this brings us to where we are right now. I'm sorry if this is complicated, I understand that it probably is, but I hope it's clear enough to understand. I'll try to make this as clear as possible with the visuals. Just thought I'd clarify and thoroughly explain this before we move on. But with all that being said, let's continue the story. Kushina's first order as Hokage is to send a request to all the great nations to organize a 5 Kage Summit. Hawks are sent to each of the great ninja villages, and within a few days a time and place are arranged for a meeting. Surprisingly, each village agrees to meet. A bit strange, since there is usually at least 1 or 2 Kage that absolutely refuse to cooperate with other nations, but it seems that Konoha's mention of important information on an international criminal organization is enough to get everybody's attention. The 5 Kage meet up in the land of Samurai, and Mifune mediates the summit. The Kage present are Raikage A from the Cloud Village with Darui and C as his assistants, Tsuchikage Anoki from the Stone with Kurotsuchi and Kitsuchi as his assistants, Kushina Uzumaki from the Leaf with Jiraiya and Fugaku as her assistants, and this is where things get interesting. From the Sand, Granny Chiyo. Rasa, the 4th Kazekage, has been assassinated by Orochimaru, and Gaara is not only very young at this point in the story, but also captured by the Akatsuki. This leaves the Sand Village to elect a new Kage as quickly as humanly possible, and the top choice at the moment is their strongest and smartest person in the village, which happens to be Chiyo. The Sand is really getting desperate. Gaara was their ultimate war potential and Raza was their ultimate shield against attacks. With both gone, Sunagakure is in a very poor state. Chiyo is strong, definitely a Kage level combatant, but she's also very old. But who knows, perhaps this will motivate Baki, Kankuro, and Temari to train a lot harder than in the original. Chiyo brings Baki and her brother, the other elder from the Sand, as her bodyguards. And, last but not least, from the Blood Mist village, the 4th Mizukage, Yagura. Remember, this takes place during Part 1, after the Konoha Crush arc, and Mei came into power not long before the start of Shippuden. At least that's what was displayed in some of the filler. Meaning Yagura is the current Mizukage. His assistants are a shinobi with bandages all over his face, and another random ninja. I would also like to take the time to remind you that Kushina being a jinchūriki has been kept secret in this timeline, so no one from the other villages has knowledge of her possessing the 9 tails inside of her. Yagura, on the other hand, seems to have been well known for having control over his tailed beast. At least that's what Danzo implies in the original, so him being a jinchūriki should be common knowledge. Anyways, let's get back to the story. The meeting starts off with A and Inoki making fun of the Leaf and Sand villages for their previous Kage dying off, and the Sand for having appointed someone so old to the position of Kage, as well as having lost their tailed beast. The Raikage is the biggest culprit of this.
The Sand is really getting desperate, isn't it? Bringing in a living skeleton to lead them.
Oh, bite your tongue, Mr. Muzzlehead. I'm still in my prime.
Chiyo quips back. The Raikage is about to retort, but before he can, Kushina interrupts the conversation.
The Sand has been taken advantage of and weakened greatly by the very organization I called you all here to discuss. If you're not careful, the same thing that happened to the Sand could very well happen to one of your villages next.
What did you say? Calm down, Raikage. Let's hear the woman out. I'm curious to know more about this rumored organization that apparently poses a threat so great that you felt the need to call a summit over its existence.
Thank you, Lord Tsuchikage.
Kushina proceeds to explain to the Kage what Orochimaru did to the Sand Village. How he attacked Konoha, how they sealed him away, and how he was assisted by some members of the criminal organization known as the Akatsuki. She also tells them all the information Jiraiya had previously told the shinobi of Konoha, and she finishes it off by informing the Kage of a possible connection between the Akatsuki and the village hidden in the rain. Since the Sannin are well respected and Jiraiya is known to be a traveler, this information, having come from him, plays a part in the other Kage taking it seriously.
I see. Seems like quite a pressing matter indeed. From what I understand, your main message is for us to protect our jinchūriki, correct? Being a jinchūriki myself, I cannot overlook this obvious threat to the safety of my village, as well as my own life. Precisely. That is why I believe we should take action. At the very least, we should all give considerably more attention to protecting our jinchūriki. If possible, I would also like to organize a joint defense against the Akatsuki.
So what? You want all the nations which have been at war for decades to suddenly come together and face this threat that we aren't even sure is worth fussing over?
With all due respect, Lord Tsuchikage, Konoha was attacked by 3 of their members, and those 3 proved to be extremely threatening and dangerous shinobi. Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, was one of them. Another one was a puppet master with enough skill to control 100 puppets at once. And the third one kept assaulting the village from the sky with exploding clay constructs, one of which was reportedly big enough to wipe out half of the village. If it wasn't for our Jonin and Hokage, the village would have fallen. Now imagine there are 9 of these people.
Upon hearing this, Inoki's eyes narrow.
This person throwing explosions. Did you see his face by any chance?
He kept his distance and was positioned high in the sky. but one of our top jonin was able to catch a glimpse. He appeared to have long, blonde hair.
That confirms it then. It must have been Deidara, a rogue ninja from the Stone Village. He became a rogue ninja a couple years ago.
Oh really? So then we have confirmation that your village has indirectly contributed to the Akatsuki's creation. Way to confess.
You and I both know that wasn't what I meant to say, Lord Raikage.
Inoki quips back at A. In order to break up the tension, Chiyo speaks up after a long silence.
We have more information too, as Lady Hokage already mentioned. One of the known members was a puppet master. With the amount of mastery shown by him and the puppets he used, we're almost certain it was Sasori of the Red Sand, a rogue ninja from our villages who terrorized the nations during the Great Wars. And my dear grandson.
She thinks that last part to herself.
However, he has reportedly been killed by a shinobi of the Leaf.
Chiyo sighs. There go her hopes of meeting her grandchild again. Remember, Guy blew Sasori's head off in the invasion, and they don't know Sasori's a puppet who can be repaired. It should also be mentioned that the third Kazekage being a puppet of Sasori would be something Konoha and Sunagakure would be aware of here, as Sasori did use him during the invasion. Just a thing to make note of.
So you're telling us Konoha was already able to kill 2 of these so-called threats to us? Doesn't sound very intimidating if you ask me.
Way to show off your ignorance, Raikage. All 3 of the men listed are S-rank criminals. 2 of them were able to assassinate a Kage on 3 different occasions, and all of them have infamous reputations. Is this not enough proof that we need to take the Akatsuki group seriously? We don't know who else might be involved in this organization.
The debate goes on, but soon clear stances emerge. Kushina, Yagura, and Inoki all want to take countermeasures against the Akatsuki. Chiyo does not want to cooperate with the other villages but doesn't really have a choice. She knows the sand is in a bad spot and they need to gain as much favor with the other villages as possible. So reluctantly, she joins in. The Raikage is eventually convinced that the Akatsuki is threatening and reluctantly agrees to watch out for them. But then a question emerges. What countermeasures will they take? At the end of the meeting, 3 things are decided upon. First of all, the villages shall share any and all information concerning the Akatsuki they come across with all the other nations. Second, each of the Kage has a right to call for the help of other villages in an event of detected Akatsuki activity within their nation's borders. Some of the Kage have no intentions of ever using this right though. And third, an Akatsuki suppression unit made up of shinobi from all 5 great nations is to be formed. Said unit's main job will be to search for information on the organization as well as hunt down its members. What shinobi will be on the unit shall be decided by each village individually. Kushina also promises to send some people to the Rain Village to investigate its possible connection to the Akatsuki. The Raikage, not trusting the Leaf fully, insists on sending Darui with them to keep an eye on them, and Kushina accepts. And with that, the meeting is concluded and the Kage and their aides start heading back to their countries. Darui heads with Kushina, Jiraiya, and Fugaku to the Leaf Village. A few hours later, Yagura's group meets up with a certain someone in the woods.
Well, look who's back. How did the meeting go, Lord Mizukage?
It went well. Better than I expected, actually. The nations are falling right into our hands.
Indeed. Those fools are going to the Hidden Rain soon. Seems like Nagato's group is going to have some interesting visitors. I see. Quite the entertaining news. By the way, why don't you drop the disguise, Toby?
The Kage aide with the bandages on his face unwraps said bandages, revealing himself to be Obito.
Seems like having a Kage under your direct control has its benefits, doesn't it?
Indeed it does. It gives us access to all sorts of interesting information.
Obito looks over at Yagura.
Making Yagura into a puppet was one of my better decisions if I do say so myself. Now let's sit back and see how the leaf's journey to the rain goes.
And that's going to do it for part 9. Remember, Yagura was being controlled by Obito for a long time before his death in the original, and in this story it's no different. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. Thank you for watching at all, and I wish you a good rest of the day. Goodbye.